For some reason, the cultists had a map of Ankh-Morpork in the sanctuary. The sanctuary was decorated with a strange and disturbing fresco. Closely examining the fresco, I could see that one of the symbols made a frequent appearance. The recurring symbol on the fresco was like a distorted star with an eye in the center. I wasn't sure what it was. I made a sketch of the symbol in my notebook.
Who would Sir like to see this time?
I'd like to use the library again.
Very well. I will show Sir the way, since it seems the labyrinthine corridors of this vast edifice are beyond Sir's meager navigational skills.
The Necrotelecomnicon was a book that legend spoke of, saying that any mortal man who read it would be driven insane. I learnt about it from a copy of Necrotelecomnicon discussed for students with practical experiments that I found in the library. In this tome, there is a description of the old dark gods of the Disc, including the terrible laddering holler, Nylan-Athatep. Apparently, Nylan-Athatep was once summoned by a series of 8 murders, forming a perfect octagram, focused at the center of the Circle C, thus releasing it from the sunken city of Leshp, where he was trapped, along with drunken Cthulhu Bapalulu. The book speculated about the whereabouts of Nylan-Athatep now, but beyond him being safely imprisoned somewhere around the Circle C, it drew no conclusions. I found the obscure star-like symbol in the Necrotelecomnicon discussed for students. It called it the sign of the eel, or the Elver sign. It was apparently a protective ward against some of the older, darker gods of the Discworld. The tome also explained how to inscribe one, the order of tracing being very important. Not that I believed any of this mumbo-jumbo, but hey, you can't afford to be too careful, right? I need your help again, Malaclips.
They'll all need my help sooner or later. They just don't know it yet.
Heard of Nylan-Athatep?
Shh! Do not say that name so loudly.
Why not?
There are some names you simply do not wish to speak without taking proper precautions. Now, don't say that word to me ever again.
Heard of Nylan-Athatep? Why not?
There are... Now...
Does this symbol mean anything to you?
Yes. But I had best not discuss it with you.
Why not?
I don't want anyone who's listening in to know I know what it is.
That doesn't help me much.
I can't tell you everything, Luton.
I'll have to go. The truth. is out there.
Trust no one.
If there was an octagram of murders taking place in the city, it might help to find out exactly where each murder took place. For some reason, the The murders were marking out a perfect octagram, just like the one that had been used to free Nylonathotep from sunken Leshp centuries ago. If I was right, there would be two more murders, one in Dagon Street and one in the Wizard's Pleasance. If I knew which one was next, I could stake it out. In the center of the octagram was the Disc Theater, which almost certainly meant some kind of cosmic evil was entombed there. I can't say I was enthusiastic at the thought of checking it out. I knew the sites for all of the murders.
Everyone on the disc knows the legend of Eleanor of Tsot. Or at least everyone knows a legend of Eleanor of Tsot. Or Krinix. Or El Harib. Ask most people and they'll tell you that she was the cause of the Tsotian Wars. Of course, ask most people and they'll tell you the patrician is a kind and benevolent man. Never trust what most people tell you. The real cause of the Tsotian Wars was a little-known goddess called Errata.
The pompous windbag on the stage was Pravitier. He went beyond being a ham. He had 2 eggs, fried mushrooms, and a gigantic rasher of bacon. That's pretty good. You've been acting long.
One is either born an actor, or one is never an actor.
Yeah, I can just see you paddling about the womb with a script in hand.
Do you doubt my credentials as the disc's premier performer of dramatic scenes?
As far as I'm concerned, one actor is as good as another. You come on, you speak your lines, and then you get killed. How hard can it be?
Here I stand, your slave, a poor, infirm, weak, and despised old man. Do you slight me such?
What?
You are not abreast of Hwell's fair pen, then, stranger.
The name's Luton. And no, I don't know Hwell's work at all.
My name is Pravitier, and my realm is that of tragedy and comedy. The finest arts are my purview.
Yeah, if you say so. So you're an actor?
It is my calling to tread the boards, and for this I am called an actor.
Translation, yes. Why do you talk like that?
When one is blessed with silk, one does not wear cotton.
What's that supposed to mean?
You are not familiar with the ways of the theater, are you, my boy?
No. I always thought it was about getting killed in a different way every night.
Well, that's part of it. But it's also about the lines, the pomp and the circumstance. Men in skirts. Yes, yes. The play's the thing.
To catch the cash flow of the dim.
You disapprove? A man must his living make.
If he could make it with decent grammar, I wouldn't mind.
You should come and see the spectacle. Perhaps then you would cast less scorn upon our merry ways.
You want me to go to see a play?
Come to hear the wooden dialogue.
That's not much of a quote.
It was the best I could do at short notice.
What's playing at the moment?
Troculus and Chrysalic. The tale of the frailty of woman and the stupidity of a man in love.
With a lot of bloody deaths thrown in for good measure.
But of course.
Tell me about the plays.
Would that I had the time to sing the praises of all Whell's masterworks. But time is short and life is fleeting.
Just tell me about the plays.
Our current season is a groundbreaking interpretation of Whell's most famous works, pushing back the boundaries of art and style.
Groundbreaking?
'Tis a term we of the noble calling use to describe the way each generation improves and expands upon the themes laid bare in the soul by inspiration.
In other words, your murder scenes look more and more realistic every year.
The triumph of effects.
Unfortunately, the triumph of effects over plot.
The plots are as entrancing as the day they were first written.
In other words, you haven't had any new ideas in decades.
If the way is true, why err from it?
Well, I have to go.
Parting is such sweet sorrow.
Whatever. I'd picked up the theater flyer from the Disc Theater. It told me about the plays in the Disc's current season.
Who would say?
I'd
Very well.
I looked up Whell in the library and found his complete works. In there was a discussion of the 8 great tragedies, Whell's bloodiest works. From the About the Author paragraph, I learnt that Whell was a dwarf who was banished from his tribe not only because of his claustrophobia, but because of his tendency to daydream. Both undesirable, to say the least, if you work in a mine. 102, and in the prime of his life for a dwarf, Whell now worked for Vittler's Plays at the Disc Theater as one of the premier playwrights of the day. The 8 great tragedies were given in great detail. 8 plays, each with a collection of murders, usually with one more particularly gruesome or grotesque than the others, presumably for use in publicity trailers. The publicity trailers helped draw people into the theater by being towed around town to display posters. There was something suspiciously familiar about some of those murders. Mind if I ask some more questions?
It is neither here nor there.
Tell me about the 8 great tragedies, and don't make me regret asking you about this.
The 8 great tragedies are considered to be among the finest of Whell's plays, each one a poignant drama with an insight into the mortal condition.
That's all you have to say?
I could tell you much more.
Such as?
I could tell of the soul-searching anguish of Village in The Happy Prince of Copperhaven, as he struggles to decide whether to avenge the death of his father, whilst in the meantime inadvertently stabbing and poisoning the entire cast in oh so many humorous misunderstandings.
No, that's fine.
Oh, in the dead vast middle of the night, he cries, "Oh, that my lover's father had not hidden behind that tapestry whilst I was practicing with my poignard."
That's enough.
And the famous soliloquy, "To be or not to be." Oh, what's the point? Nobody's listening. Or perhaps I could tell of the tempestuous love of Antilogy for Cleopatra, queen of the Jelly Baby.
Stop it!
Perhaps the unspeakable acts of Titus Diplodocus. If one good deed in all my life I did, I do repent it from my very soul. That's all, folks.
All right! Enough!
Our revels now are ended.
Stop! I knew I shouldn't have asked. Well, I have to go.
Ah, parting is such sweet sorrow.
Whatever. I quickly transformed into a wolf and had a sniff around. There was an eerie, dark magenta scent in the theater. But what caught my attention was the magenta scent that seemed to disappear into the stage. My murderer had been here. Where the scent had disappeared, there were some marks. I couldn't quite make them out, but they seemed to be a definite shape of some kind. I traced the sign of the eel across the marks, exactly as I'd learned how to do in the Libraris Apocrypha. There was a faint click, and the next thing I knew, there was a passageway under the stage. The passageway led into a dark and ominous vault. The whole sepulchral temple seemed to be formed from curves and angles that would give geometry teachers nightmares. The centerpiece to this disturbing chamber was a stone altar, engraved with a map of the Circle Sea. It looked centuries old, the kind of altar that could tell a few tales if it could talk. I was glad it couldn't. Using the map, I worked out where each of the 8 great tragedies had taken place. They made an octagram around the edge, just like the counterweight killings did in Ankh-Morpork. I could match each of the tragedies to one of the murders, and the positions corresponded precisely. I knew that someone was going to get dragged to death from the Wizard's Pleasance, and that some unlucky fellow was going to get eaten in Dagon Street. The moon over Dagon Street lit the rundown alley. It didn't look like anyone was around. It was as abandoned as the Octarine Parrot on open stage night. The abandoned fish bar was boarded up tight. I couldn't pull the boards off with my hands. The fish bar was littered with assorted debris. Amongst the debris, I found a bone that seemed a little out of place. I knew there was something familiar about the bone. It was a human femur. Just like in Titus Diplodocus, someone had been dismembered and eaten. That meant there was only the wizard's pleasance to go, and the octagram would be complete.